St. Lawrence County Industrial Development Agency meeting agenda, call to order. Roll call.
Mr. Staples.
Here.
Mr. LaBeouf.
Here.
Mr. Blevins.
Here.
Mr. Hall.
Here.
Mr. McMahon. Mr. Morrow.
Here.
Mr. Reagan.
Here. Good. Public notice posted August 31st, 2020. Public comment. No public comment. Approval of minutes of the June 29th, 2020 meeting. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Passes unanimously. Financial report, April 2020, May 2020, June 2020, July 2020. Do I have a motion to accept?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Ernie, discussion.
Summary in your packets, just to point out some highlights.
Who's speaking?
This is Patrick Kelly, IDA CEO. For April project fees, we received $96,000 for the Vecino project. We received our county payment for the second quarter of $62,500. In May, we received some project application fees for some of the solar projects that we are working on, the amount of $16,000. We sold some excess equipment as part of the Parker moving out of the facility in this building that is in there as well. In June, you'll see some building expense. Throughout the course of the pandemic, we've been looking at the ways that we can provide service and how we can make the building accessible yet also protected. So we put in some new lock control systems, a new phone system, an intercom system, so people, a Dropbox, different ways that we can still be interactive without physically being in contact, both now and as events unfold in the future. So there was some investment in the building and those amounts. July, our third quarter revenue payment from the county, the administrative revenue from the IDA LDC that is received through the River Valley Redevelopment Agency. You'll see some project revenue funding coming in and reimbursements for the JNL project.
How much for the JNL project reimbursements? Roughly?
The total project was over $1 million, and this was in the 75,000 range.
This came from the state?
Yes.
We're blessed. All in favor?
Aye.
Passes unanimously. Staff report? Patrick?
Just to let you know, we are continuing our ongoing work on the county reopening task force. We have now distributed about 350 signs, the yard signs, to please help keep St. Lawrence County open for business. I know we distributed them to some of the board members, the local developers, the planning offices, the county chamber, the colleges and universities. Have all been very good partners, as well as the IDA staff in getting these signs distributed quickly. There's 250 yard signs and 100 window signs for those downtown areas where there wasn't the grass space or the ability to put the signs in. We have updated our advertisement. As you know, we reprogrammed some promotional money to help outreach local businesses, to help reinforce the messaging for reopening the economy. Our newest ad, I have a multimedia presentation.
St. Lawrence County is open for business, and our local businesses are excited to welcome you back. Your family, friends, and neighbors are working hard to keep you safe and keep jobs in St. Lawrence County. So when you go out, please slip that mask on, maintain safe social distancing, wash your hands often, and stay local, shop local, and support local. That will help keep St. Lawrence County open for business.
This message brought to you by the St. Lawrence County IDA. If your business needs help and guidance, contact them at www.slcida.com.
That is our latest ad. Again, we are working with, as part of the task force, certainly with the public health professionals to try to reinforce the messaging, while also, as you can hear, having an angle towards supporting local businesses. Many of the businesses, the small shops, the restaurants, the stores, as I know everybody's aware, are still struggling. There's still a a slowdown in customer flow and for obvious reasons. So we're trying to just keep the messaging out there to do the things that we can do to try and keep people safe while trying to give some patronage and support to the local businesses.
What are the vehicles for the presentation? Radio, signs?
Radio, signs,
TV at all?
internet, and print. We did not do TV. We also wanted to focus on the local St. Lawrence County-based media operations where we could not only get the messaging out, but also
Come from financial.
help them at a time when I think there's not a lot of excess money being spent on advertising right now. Zinc price is up to $1.13 today. I don't know if anybody has seen, but there was an accident at the mine. Somebody was airlifted today to Syracuse. They say it's non-life threatening, but it was something to do with a hydraulic hose.
Air hose.
Air hose?
An air hose.
Okay, an air hose. So as we learn more, we'll keep you posted. Speaking of the mine, they sent us a very nice letter and a token of appreciation. This is a zinc bar, 4 inches long by 1.25 inches wide and 1/2 inch thick. It weighs about 3/4 pound. The zinc was sourced from the smelter in Quebec that processes their concentrates. So a certain amount of the material came from the ore mine at Empire State Mines. The ingots were cast by Glass Roots, a small artist foundry in Waddington. They wanted to send this as a token of their support for our assistance to them throughout their coming to St. Lawrence County and specifically the efforts of the going on throughout the pandemic.
I think we should put that on Ernie's sign.
You can pass it along if you would like. As we continue to have a number of discussions with solar developers and potential solar projects, as you know, we have our first one later on the agenda, our first pilot project. We continue to work with Arconic on the business concept, business park concept. We are finishing our agreement with them and with New York State. I anticipate bringing that to you at your next meeting to formally approve. You have an article in Fuse Hub. Fuse Hub is the state manufacturing extension partnership administrator. There was an article in their newsletter yesterday regarding APC paper. APC paper, as you know, in Norfolk it's a facility the IDA used to own. As a manufacturer of recycled materials or a utilizer of recycled materials in their manufacturing process, they had some administrative work and some monitoring and reporting they needed to do to continue to qualify as using 100% recycled materials. There's a nice profile article about that involving SciTech, our local manufacturing extension partner. I bring it to your attention for a couple reasons. I think Andy McMahon, fellow board member, is a board member of SciTech. So just as a shout out to Andy, we work very closely with SciTech, and in fact, in this case, we referred SciTech to APC paper to help with this particular issue. So we talk sometimes about the technical support and the connections we make. This is an example of that for your reading pleasure.
How many people do they employ approximately?
55.
And they've stayed open during this whole process?
Yes. Property update, the Newell building, we continue to work with the city on the repair of the office portion. There's been a series of meetings that Rich and John Pinkerton have participated in. I'm sure you noticed or saw, we received a $500,000 Northern Border Regional Commission award, a grant for that project that was announced 2 weeks ago. We have also been approved for the $200,000 Development Authority of the North Country Redevelopment Fund application that we had submitted. So that's half grant, half 1% loan.
So it's 200,000?
That's 200,000.
So it's 100 grant, 100 loan.
Correct.
Interest rate?
1%,
How many years?
20. So pretty friendly terms.
Can I get one of those loans?
We can work on it. We're working with National Grid. We are putting together our plan for exactly how to allocate the money into best move the building forward. So we'll be talking about that in the very, very near future. So but be aware, it's $700,000 we've been approved for in the last month or so.
When do you think that will all come?
We want to be in construction.
We're hoping by the end of the year, we can have some of it going on.
Identify yourself. To the camera.
Rich Williams, facilities manager for the IDA.
He's off camera but on sound.
That was pleasing, thank you, Rich.
The website, from a marketing perspective, we are putting the finishing touches on our website. I know at our last meeting, you saw the sizzle reel. I have no more pictures or website information to show you, but rest assured, we're moving forward on that.
Can you do two things? Who's doing it? And what's the value of it to us in dollars for the people that are paying for it?
We're doing it in partnership with the New York Power Authority. And it's a 5-year agreement that's worth somewhere a little less than $500,000.
And we're partnering with them to do that. They're
Yes.
helping us.
Yes, they are helping us. They are substantially funding it all for us. And it's not just the money for the website, there is an ongoing agreement for social media production, promotion, to help with the messaging. And the timing couldn't be better, as everybody knows, more and more of everything is going on via the internet, but site selection is certainly in that category of where you want to make sure you're.
It's a significant investment to and for the St. Lawrence County IDA from the New York State Power Authority in an amount of close to $500,000.
Yes.
Good work.
The last thing I'll leave you with is there's just to give you some summary of the impact of the COVID situation on the economy. Since March, or initially in March, New York State lost 1.9 million jobs. 550,000 of them have been brought back or are back in place, but that's a net loss of 1.4 million jobs. There's the unemployment rate in the state in July was 16%. That's information that was provided to us through the comptroller's office. In St. Lawrence County, from March to April, we lost 2,600 jobs. 1,500 of them, or jobs have been created since then or are back for a net loss of around 1,100 jobs. And our unemployment rate was 6.3% back in March. It's now 12.1%. So to give you some numerical sense of the impact.
Do we have any idea what type of jobs? I mean, were they mostly restaurant? Bar, or did we lose any industries that you're aware of?
Yeah, I mean, we've had healthcare layoffs. We've had Arconic has done a couple of layoffs. They've been, a range, of industries. The state doesn't present it on a county level of specific industries. But, experience in talking with companies, I think it's all over the economy. Where we have benefited is, and I say this carefully, because anybody who loses a job, it is a significant catastrophic event for them. But we have not had a large-scale facility close. We've not had a paper mill close or, an aluminum plant,
Or a glass plant.
a glass plant, a hospital, a college or university, a prison. The longer this goes on, we're always in danger of one of those events happening and making what is, by any measure, a bad situation certainly worse. But to this point, I think the impact, our impact versus the counties around us, we're probably somewhere in the middle, and you can tell the counties that were really, the numbers that are different, you would see, as an example, Jefferson County lost a lot of retail jobs in the early spring. When you have the big box stores and the malls that were closing, because of the dispersed nature of our economy and the lack of those kind of larger areas, Messina Mall certainly has suffered, but there are not we do not have the chain restaurants and chain stores that you would see in some of the areas of the state where that impact was greater. And I think that's reflected in the unemployment numbers. They were hurt worse than us earlier, and they remain worse than us now. That's it for the IDA staff report.
Being no old business, new business.
So one thing,
Oh,
I think we ought to congratulate Pat on his recent election as the chairman of that committee.
I agree. We're
That's
all,
quite an honor for all of us.
that committee meaning the New York State Economic Development Council?
Ernie, thank you. I was waiting for somebody here to bring it up. They were all shy, I guess. Yeah,
They told me after 3 o'clock.
that Brian said that is, I think we just said it, it's a compliment to the organization. I think the IDA has been a long-standing, active member in the New York State Economic Development Council. The board has supported our participation for years. Raymond was active on the board. Ed Russell was active on the board. So I think we have a history of having a voice with that organization, and being in the, at the head table certainly helps us as we're trying to stay connected and understand what's going on in New York and bring a North Country perspective to that organization.
And for anyone that may be listening on any streaming devices, this is not a regional organization. This is all of New York State, in the big population areas. So it
It's
is
an honor.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
a good point to bring it up, Bernie. No, the new
Well,
business.
there's one other thing. Brian and I have been reappointed. Our terms go to the year 2023.
Please identify yourself.
In the year 2023, I'll be 90 years old.
And I'll be 900.
That's good.
I congratulate you, and you congratulate me, we'll congratulate everybody. Let's do this resolution. Resolution accepting the fiscal year 2021 tentative budget. Do I hear a motion?
So
So
moved.
moved.
Second. Discussion.
Yes, this, as you know our process, this is a draft budget for your consideration over the next month or so, the next 30 days until we approve a formal budget for next year. We've done the same process we go through every year. We looked at our previous year's budget, we looked at the year-to-date, we made some assumptions and some educated guesses on where we would be financially. We plugged in the number from our agreement with the county for the county revenue. The buildings, we've looked at occupancy. We have nobody in the Canton building right now other than the IDA. We have not built in a revenue assumption for that. We'd rather be conservative. We have discussions underway with potential tenants for this building, but nothing where I think we put it in even in pencil yet. The revenue figures, you'll note we have some final assumptions for some of the grants that we are receiving, some of the final project revenue. Most of it, we're getting to a point where we're zeroing out the JNL project. The rail project is got a little bit left that we think will go into next year. Candidly, we have some decisions to make about the Newell building, about where that building, once we assume it, with our agreement with the city, whether that will be an IDA property, whether it will be a PD, Property Development Corporation property, so that will have some impact. We've looked at this year as a bit of an anomaly in terms of what we've done with marketing, what our travel has been, what we've done with some of the building expenses. But ultimately, it's a budget that's not dissimilar to where we have proposed for years past. There are no big sweeping changes that are shocking to anybody. There are no new positions built into the IDA budget. We have proposed a couple new positions in the IDA LDC Again, that's a little bit outside of what we, the very near-term horizon. That could, final budget, that could change, or that could be a modification issue if something necessitates a staff change.
Any questions? All in favor of accepting the tentative budget?
Aye.
And it passes unanimously. Second resolution under new business, accepting an application submitted by In-Law Brewing LLC with respect to a certain project authorizing the scheduling and conduct of public hearing describing the forms of financial assistance being contemplated and the adopting of the findings pursuant to a seeker. Do I hear a motion?
So
So
moved.
moved.
Ernie, second? Second.
Okay, there is a inconsistency between the agenda heading and the resolution itself. There's not a public hearing scheduled, this is an actual project authorizing resolution.
Okay.
Just by point of clarification, we've talked about this project
So
before.
there's been no secret yet.
There is, yes,
Okay.
the page 37, it's the accepting of the application, taking official action toward developing the project, adopting the findings pursuant to seeker. The town planning board did seeker, we're going to adopt their findings. And then authorizing sales tax exemption, mortgage recording tax exemption, and pilot. And probably the simplest way to summarize is by going through the cost benefit analysis. I know everybody's had the cost benefit analysis, but this is In-Law Brewing Company. They opened in November of 2017. They currently operate in Chase Mills. They're moving a couple of miles down the road to property they've acquired, expanding by creating a 2,800 square foot brewing operation, going from 7 barrels to 30 barrels. The assistance that we are contemplating is a sales and use tax exemption in an amount of $13,600, a mortgage recording exemption in an amount of about $2,000, $2,063, and then our standard pilot, treating this as a manufacturing and distribution operation with some on-site customers as well, but primarily manufacturing.
Term of pilot?
10 years, 5 years, the 100% abatement on new value, and then 5 years with 50% abatement. The total estimated exemptions is $45,534 over the 10-year period, including the pilot, the mortgage recording tax exemption, the sales tax exemption. There are 2 individuals who currently own it. It's In-Law Brewing. They are brothers-in-law. Their proposal is for one of them to go full-time and then to hire a full-time and a couple of part-time production workers over the 3-year window. The IDA, LDC, and River Valley Agency have approved a loan for the project in an amount of up to $75,000. The New York Power Authority approved a $51,000 Northern New York Power Proceeds Allocation Program to work with the project. As you'll see, it's manufacturing, there's some modest job development. It also, as we point out, supports the regional tourism and wine and beer trail, the growing wine and beer trail and agribusiness tourism industries in the county.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
I'd like to amend the resolution to delete the language referring to a public hearing.
Second? All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
And now we vote on the amendment.
We'll go to the resolution as amended. It's already been
Yeah.
first and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Passes unanimously. Third resolution, authorizing financial assistance to Morristown Solar 2 LLC. A project in the form of payment in lieu of taxes agreement, a sales and use tax exemption, and the adopting of findings pursuant to seeker. Do I hear a motion? Moved by Mr. Blevins, second. Moved and second. It's already been seconded. Patrick?
Well, as you know, we are talking with numerous potential solar projects. We've been talking with this company since November. We've talked with the IDA about this numerous times. Lynn, I think you met with them directly at the Morristown Town Hall. We conducted our first Zoom public hearing. My compliments to Rich. He set us up technologically and managed the public hearing. The big question with solar projects is the value, how you arrive at a pilot, the pilot schedule. We initially were talking with a company in the 3,500 or so, maybe around 4,000 per megawatt range. It's a 5 megawatt project. We've looked at the NYSERDA toolkit.
Now joining Ed Russell.
Ed, we are just discussing the Morristown Solar 2 project. Your timing is actually quite good. The motion has been moved and seconded, and I'm going through the cost benefit analysis and general project discussion. I had asked Ed to join us as he has been representing us as counsel on this particular project. The NYSERDA toolkit talks about pilot payments in the 3,000 to 5,000 range for solar projects. Candidly, as time goes on, the values probably will go up. We're seeing ranges in the 4 to 6 with what other IDAs are approving. We try to take a very close and measured look at the benefits being provided. There's job creation is not obviously a primary component of these projects. However, from a tax-based development, the subject property pays around $1,000 in property taxes as it is right now. The first year at the proposed value of $4,250 per megawatt, it will pay the $1,000 as the base value plus $21,250 in pilot payments
Per year.
per year.
So it's gonna go to almost $23,000?
Yes. 20-year pilot with an increase of 2% each year built in. The town, as we move, what we are trying to do as we talk with the various jurisdictions is come up with a consistency of approach and then a consistency of requirement and documentation. For example, the town requires a decommissioning plan and a decommissioning surety bond. So our pilot documents will build that requirement in and make sure that that is kept. We'll have our recapture agreements, our project agreements. With these projects, this is not a traditional factory creating jobs. There are plenty of questions, plenty of issues regarding these kind of projects. Are you getting the right amount of money? When we've done one of these, I anticipate within 2 or 3 years, we'll have done dozens of these, and we may be at a different place with where we are. For right now, the town has consented to the pilot structure. The school has consented. I think our final value that we're proposing is a little higher than what the school had approved. You'll see in the resolution, the project developer has offered to make a payment of $5,000 to each of the 3 taxing jurisdictions. That is not part of the pilot, but we want you aware of it. The other big issue is sales tax exemption. The initial project request for sales tax exemption was, I believe, over $200,000. When I say we've looked at these carefully, one of the things we have tried to ascertain is what kind of sales tax benefit are we providing, what is really required, what is available to these projects through other New York State programs. To make a long story short, the final request in front of you is for $58,000. I think we were not, especially with projects that aren't creating a lot of jobs, we've had discussions individually with board members, so you'll know this. To say that the benefit of the project or one of the benefits is pilot payments and have the pilot payments wiped out for 10 years because of the sales tax exemption didn't make sense to us. So this puts us at about 2 years worth of pilot payments, or about 10,000 per megawatt, that are being provided in sales tax exemption to help with the purchase of aggregates, materials, the kind of things they'll buy locally. whether that becomes a hard and fast rule or a rule of thumb or a guidepost for us as we start doing more projects, I think it's something we keep in mind. Because to say to society, here's the benefit, it's the pilot payments, it's the renewable energy participation, it's the community solar aspect. And then say, oh, by the way, there's a sales tax exemption that wipes most of the economic value out, isn't where I think we wanna be. You see in the cost benefit analysis, I don't know if anybody saw, the New York Power Authority recently announced that they are moving forward with the construction of their large-scale battery storage facility in Chattagay. There's a good summary in that about how it supports the state's renewable energy goals. Within our cost benefit analysis, we highlight a number of local, regional, statewide renewable energy goals, the rationale for participating in these kind of projects. And, I don't wanna belabor this any more than I just did, but, I think everybody here has an understanding of these projects. And again, like I said, this is our first, the next batch is coming in half dozen at a time, just so you're aware. So we're working to try and keep up with these and keep them, ready to bring forward to you.
Good, Mr. Kelly, Mr. Russell, I have a couple questions. Mr. Chairman, I'm Lynn Blevins from the great county of St. Lawrence. 4250 per megawatt. Will this bind us to that figure going forward
With other projects?
with other projects?
No, I mean, we have others. The benefit, I think, of having the IDA involved and just so people, by way of stepping back, projects like this have access to a 15-year no tax treatment through real property law 487. The jurisdictions can require that they have some kind of pilot, even if they participate in 487. So the benefit we bring, in addition to the consistency and the revenue and the way we deal with these, is hopefully there would be a consistency. The other projects are aware of where some of these, we have said to them, I don't see people going backwards from here, I only see them going up. Because you're not gonna go to a community 10 miles away and ask for 4,000 when they just did 4,250.
And that, I think, would be my next follow-up question. Should we start considering having some consistency with a time frame where it gets reviewed every 6 months or every year, so that everybody that comes to us will be on the same level?
What I would suggest is, what that would mean would be revisiting our uniform tax exemption policy. One of the things we had talked about doing that in order to have a prescribed way we would treat solar projects.
Because they've never been here before.
And what we had decided was, let's get one under our belts and then we'll have better experience and maybe we will take that step. The shortcoming in that plan was we didn't realize that we'd be doing one and all of a sudden have 20 more in the queue. So I think it is something we might want to look at because this kind of development is not going to go away.
From my standpoint, from a sales standpoint, and that's the reason I would say 6 months to a year, because it would give those companies an incentive to get in under our plan, which would say if you want to drag your feet and take 5 years to do this, you're probably going to pay more per megawatt.
Sure.
People to come in first.
But there's also economy of scale here. You could do a project that's 40 acres compared to a project that's 200 acres.
Right.
So
You have to go through that.
you have to work through the difference in scale of project relative to what's economically feasible for them to pay.
Yeah, that's an important distinction. This is, as are all the others I've mentioned to this point, these are what are called community solar projects. They're up to 5 megawatts. The local community has the access to take advantage of the renewable energy crediting process. The larger projects, utility scale, as opposed to community, are a different matter altogether. We are also talking with companies about those projects, and I think that, so you wanna have some flexibility in how you treat different kinds of
And you
projects.
can't compare, other than providing solar power, the expenses of dealing with a 5 megawatt versus a 50 megawatt, and what 50 megawatts available to pay, and what 5 megawatts. So you just can't compare number to number. You have to compare.
So basically, each one is different.
Yes, that's correct, Ernie, yes.
And we can do that without being hell of discrimination or do
Correct.
anything.
Yeah, and
That's the point.
yeah, and the process we use now is, this is a deviation from our standard IDA pilot process. So we require the consent of the local affected tax jurisdictions. There are, as Edmund will tell you, numerous different ways you can treat a deviation. In your own policy, it's how you spell it out. There may be ways we can improve that policy by changing our deviation process, for example, that would still give us flexibility, but the way we do that, I think, would require a lot of input and thought and discussion, and I do think it's something that we have, the policy that you have right now was approved in 1999, so we have numerous reasons to relook at that anyway, but something for you to discuss.
Mr. Ricker?
You said that, this includes a decommissioning, plan requirement
Yes,
and something else,
surety bond.
a certain
Pay.
bond. In the future projects, I know that you said the town of Morristown requires that, but in future projects, should we require it?
You will require.
Yeah,
Because one of the big concerns in other places has been companies that come in, negotiate a deal with a property owner who's not terribly aware of the long-term consequences of a contract, and the contract does not include the company taking it down once they're no longer using it and creating a blight in that community in the future.
yeah, well, our task will be to look at what each specific town or community law requires and make sure we build into, and we talked with Edmund about this, build into our agreements a mechanism for ensuring that compliance before we provide incentives. In cases, and some laws, some towns have, there's a difference in what they spell out or what they require.
I would think
In
the
an
majority
absence-
of towns don't have anything.
In the absence of something like that, our role is going, and that's what one of the ways that I think we provide value and benefit to the communities is, they can enter into these agreements. We're, I think, much better positioned because of our history, because of our capacity, because of, the experience we're gaining with these, to make sure that the community of DeKalb is not worse off in one of their solar projects than Morristown was. We can level that field.
Yeah,
And we will.
and I think that's something that, is important that we stress, that, we are going to be providing that, standard and that expertise that a lot of local landowners and a lot of local town boards don't have. Because I know, I've heard that some landowners are receiving requests and proposals on an almost daily basis from a lot of different companies that are looking at St. Lawrence County and saying, this is a huge county, they got a lot of land, and are making offers, and there may be some companies that are not as community oriented as others. And I think it's a good thing that we're gonna be in a position to look out for some of these communities and some of these property owners that might otherwise miss some of these things.
Edmund. Yeah. If we're not bound by precedent, it leaves it wide open to it, doesn't it? If we're not bound by precedent of what we did before, we can pretty much agree to what we want to agree to when we meet with them.
Right.
That's absolutely right, Ernie.
But what we're trying to do, Ernie, is over time is come up with a consistent,
Yeah, I realize that, and I have no problem with that, but the question, are we bound? And apparently we're not
no,
bound
no,
by
no, no,
precedent.
no. It's just like we're not bound by interest rates. when
Not
we-
bound by precedent gives you a little more bargaining power.
Right, it's like interest rates on loans. We have discretionary judgment as to what they will be in certain instances.
Question. Are they receiving other state incentives for these projects?
Oh, yeah, they participate in the community solar program, that they're participating in, provides a benefit. New York State Sun Community Solar Incentives through NYSERDA. And the utility ones are different, they're a whole different kettle of fish when it comes to it, yes.
And finally, life expectancy for a solar farm is around the 20 years?
20 to 25.
20 to 25, and I think there's some of the companies out there that say the panels are actually good for closer to 35 years, but after 20 years, they start to degrade.
Okay.
And you'll see in the cost benefit analysis, one of the struggles we have is figuring out what's the assessed value going to be? And those numbers are kind of all over the place, so we did a comparison to the 487. And then as we get near the end of these pilots, the assessors and the projects will figure out, you know, how they'll be treated post-pilot.
And are there hazardous materials in solar panels? So, you know, the surety bond is important, cleanup and they're not more. It's not just throw them over the hill in the field.
Right.
It would get very expensive.
So it's been my worry, is these these companies aren't even gonna be there.
Most of them won't be there,
So
but the surety bond will be there.
we're gonna be there, yeah.
Yeah, and one of the things we've told the communities is we build our participation, this is a simple way of saying it, to travel with the project, not the developer. So, you know, it's not, you know, we will be part of the chain of, and we're already seeing, you know, we have conversations with some developers, and then we're dealing with the secondary company before the project even gets off the ground. There's a lot of.
I think we're pretty well covered there. Let's move on.
Who are you, sir? Could you identify yourself? Motion has been first and seconded. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Andy? Passes unanimously.
That was on you. All right, I'm in favor.
No problem. There's no more new business?
Nope.
Do we need an executive session?
We do not.
Do we have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second. We are adjourned. Any more on,
Right, there you go.